Hey everyone, Prairie Nano Reef back with another video on the Fluval M40. Today I'm going to be doing a breakdown of all of the equipment on the aquarium. My experience with equipment for nano tanks has been mixed. It can be quite hard to find certain equipment such as DC controllable power heads for a tank this small, so I bought some equipment that didn't pan out as I would have hoped it would, but I think I'm starting to settle in with some equipment that I'm really happy with. So in this video I won't be going into great detail on each piece of equipment, rather I'll just be saying a few quick thoughts on the equipment and why I ultimately chose it. In later videos I plan to do some detailed reviews on some of the equipment I'm using on the tank from the perspective of someone with a nano tank. So the first piece of equipment I'm going to talk about is the lighting. So the Fluval M40 came with a light made by Fluval for the Aquarium kit, and the light was very basic. It had a switch that switched it between off and then two different color temperatures, so you could decide either way. But there was really no automation that you could do other than just having a controller turn it off and on, but it couldn't change color temperatures or anything. The light was fairly low profile, which I liked, but it mounted to the tank with an adhesive, which I'm really not a fan of. I still have the mount attached to the back of the aquarium because I could not get it off after putting it on, so that was a big con for me. It was the first piece of equipment that I changed out. Before I had any fish in the tank, I switched to the Kessil A160. I was really drawn to the small size, as well as the amazing shimmer, even color, and shadowing one could obtain with it. I noticed a lot of people having great success with them, so I thought I would try to mimic that. Unfortunately, my first Kessil A160 only lasted about 3 years before failing out just outside of the warranty. When talking to Kessil, I determined that I was better off to buy a new unit than send it to them and have it fixed. Needless to say, I wasn't happy about that, but I like the light so much for other reasons that I did end up purchasing another one, and this one's been working flawlessly so far, so hopefully it lasts longer than the first. The second piece of equipment I'd like to talk about is the Skimmer. The Skimmer was the second piece of equipment I changed out, and again the Fluval M40 came with a bunch of equipment, including a Fluval PS1 skimmer. I totally prefer a magnetic mounting system to suction cups for all of my equipment, and I don't know, I can never get these suction cups to stick well, and it's a pain to always be trying to put your equipment back in place if it's falling down, or in the case of a skimmer, if it falls down it stops working properly. So the Fluval PS1 came with suction cups for the mounting system, or a hang on the back option, like we're not like a bracket that hangs on the glass, but it held the skimmer too high out of the water. So I was always fighting with the settings of that skimmer because the suction cups were falling off the glass, or additionally the cup height was adjustable using a rubber gasket, and the rubber gasket always came out of adjustment. It was either sliding up or down the cup depending on what you were doing, and I just spent a lot of time readjusting everything, and I could never get it fine-tuned and kind of settled in. So my new skimmer is the Tunze Comline Dock 9001, and I absolutely love this skimmer. It mounts with magnets, so after I clean it, I know it will stay in place until I go to clean it again. It is much smaller than the Fluval, so I gained a bit of room to put some probes in the chamber and the cup height isn't always going out of adjustment because you just set it in place and you actually adjust the skimmer itself up and down. So its performance is great as well for a tank this small. I think the Fluval was a little bit, well, it was rated for tanks much higher than this tank, but I mean it was fine. But I think the Tunze is a perfect size for this size of tank. The third piece of equipment I'd like to talk about is the two 50-watt heaters I use on this tank. One is set up as a main heater and the other is set up as a backup heater. I have a corner room, and so sometimes in the winter it can get really cold, and that backup heater definitely comes in handy. So I used quite a few heaters in this tank. All of them have been good, but I decided to pick one kind of heater and stick with it so that I could design a simple 3D printed mounting bracket for them to keep them secure and make changing them out easy. So I decided to go with the Eheim Jager heaters. I think their price to performance and life expectancy is a good value. Personally, I only keep the heaters in the tank for a little over a year in hopes to try to avoid any catastrophic heater failures in the tank. So when I replace the heaters, I take the old heaters out of the tank and then I use them to heat up my water for water changes for another year until I replace the heaters again, and then the cycle repeats. So by setting up the heater rotation like this, I can feel comfortable that the tank is always running on relatively new heaters while also getting good use out of them as their primary functions change. So the next piece of equipment I'd like to talk about is the return pump. I used the Fluval stock return pump for about 2 years and then replaced it with the Sicce Syncra 0.5 when I wanted to up the flow that I was getting in the tank. So I love the Sicce pumps. I think they're extremely dependable and easy to do maintenance on. I have 2 of them so that when I want to clean the pump that's in the tank, I can just turn the pump off, hot swap them out, and then I can have the tank back up and running in 5 minutes. Then I can clean the pump and have it ready to go for the next swap. Having a nano tank, I'm pretty lucky that generally all of the equipment is smaller and therefore more inexpensive, which allows me to have doubles. Realize that if it was a great big tank with a bunch of much bigger equipment, it might be harder to do that, but for now this works really well. So the next thing I want to talk about is the media that I use in the tank. So in the tank I use a single nano bag of Chemipure Elite. It does a good job of keeping the tank clean without being too aggressive in stripping the elements out of the water. I also have a bag of Fluval Biomax media, which I added to the tank really early on, probably in the first couple months or so, which increased the area that the beneficial bacteria can populate. So next, I want to talk about the controller that I use. So due to some of the ongoing personal commitments I have to travel quite a bit during the year, and so when setting up and researching the tank, I had to make sure that I had a way of monitoring the tank from wherever I was, as well as making it easier for anybody looking after it while I'm gone to do so. And to do this, I got the Neptune Apex prior to setting up the tank, and the Apex has been one of the best, if not the best, purchase I've made for the tank. It saved my tank from disaster multiple times, and frankly, I would not have had the success with this small tank without it. Some of the functions that I have set up the Apex to control include the heaters, the Kessil, the ATO, as well as to dose the tank. I have the Lunar Sim module, 1-link, ALD, breakout box, FMM, PMUP, and the AFS, and the dose connected to the Apex. One of my favorite functions of the Apex is the Lunar Lights. I know it might sound ridiculous to say that, but before I had it set up, I felt so bad for the fish in the tank because it was so dark at night. And with the Lunar Lights, I can wake up during the night and do a quick visual inspection of the tank to make sure everything's okay, which I love. And maybe I'm totally wrong, but I feel that if the fish can see where they are less likely to follow the side of the aquarium if they get scared and accidentally jump out. So the last thing I wanted to mention about the Apex is the AFS, the automatic feeder. I feed my fish 0.5 millimeter New Life Spectrum pellets, and unfortunately the original food regulator on the AFS feeds too much of the 0.5 millimeter pellets, so I designed a 3D printed replacement of the regulator that has a smaller opening which allows me to accurately feed the smaller food. I posted my design on Thingiverse, so and I've added that link to the regulator replacement in the video description, so if you have a 3D printer or have access to one and you want to print one for yourself, check that out. So I'll just quickly talk about the Senai since it was in my first video, but I used to have a Senai set up in the tank, but I just recently replaced it with the Apex ORP probe. While monitoring the tank with the Senai, I've never had an issue with ammonia, and realistically I shouldn't, but now I use the ORP probe to let me know if things are going out of balance. So the last piece of equipment I want to talk about is the Powerhead I'm using. I've had so many different Powerheads during my search for the perfect nano-sized DC controllable Powerhead, and so far I've only been happy with one of them. To start, I had the standard Fluval AC Powerhead, but quickly upgraded to the Tunze Turbili Nano Stream, which I found way too powerful for this tank. Even though it was rated for a smaller size, I think it's rated for 5 gallons, but it just knocked everything around in the tank, even on the lowest setting. I also really didn't like how the propeller was so exposed to the fish, snails, and crabs. I think that was just a recipe for disaster, so I did pull that one out. From there, I bought the Eheim surface skimmer, which it was fine for a while. I know it's not really meant to be a standalone Powerhead, but for the size of the tank, I just couldn't find anything that was small enough. So I got this surface skimmer, and it clogged about twice a week, and that got really annoying as I had to remove the whole thing from the water, clean it out, and then put it back in. So it did a great job of keeping the scum off the surface, but it just wasn't worth it in the long run. So from there I moved on to 2 of the current USA eFlux 6000 pumps, and I was running both of those for a year, at which point both of them broke. And I like the small size, but the controllability was very basic, and I was extremely disappointed that they both, just died after a year. They were well maintained, and I have no idea why, but I will not be going back to the current USA pumps. So finally I moved on to the Aqamai KPS. The Aqamai KPS has been the only Powerhead I've been really satisfied with. Its flow rate is reasonable for small tanks, and its mounting system is really well designed. I absolutely love it. It makes maintenance a breeze. You can just quickly pull the pump off, clean it off, and put it right back where it was. I've only had the pump for about 6 months, so I can't speak on the longevity of the pump yet, but the entire unit feels high quality, and I expect it to way outlast the current USA pumps. I will do a full review on the KPS in a month or two, as I'm really happy with it so far, but I just wanted to wait a few more months to kind of gather my thoughts on it. So before I got the Aqamai, I was actually waiting for the Aqua Illumination Nero 3 pump, which was announced at the time that my current USA pumps failed, but I had waited maybe 3 or 4 months and was looking for them, but it looked as though it might still be quite far from being released. So I did spring for the Aqamai KPS, and as luck would have it, the Nero 3 released about 2 weeks after. I'm still interested in getting one to test, but I'll put that plan on hold for the time being. Well, that brings me to the end of this video. I'm hoping to upload videos more frequently, as I've got lots of ideas about videos that I think will be of interest to reefers out there, especially for those who have nano tanks. And so, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy reefing!